Welcome again to Forbidden, the podcast where we discuss the dark, disgusting, and the disgraceful in our unmentionables. That's right, we've slipped into something more comfortable. Hope you're doing the same, listener. Welcome. My name is Amanda Kamada.
And I'm Blake Roberts.
And I forgot to have you do your teaser, so go ahead and do that real quickly, and we can flip the script here.
Sure. So this is our very special Halloween double feature episode. I will kick things off. On a warm June afternoon in 1952, an explosion shattered a quiet Pasadena neighborhood. When the smoke cleared, authorities found the remains of a man whose fingerprints were all over the birth of America's space program. His name was Jack Parsons, chemist, inventor, and co-founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and also devastatingly handsome. He was 37 years old, and at the moment of his death, he was mixing chemicals in a makeshift home lab surrounded by occult symbols and arcane texts.
Oh, interesting. I guess, yeah. I mean, this one is going to be an interesting one because I don't know. It sounds like kind of crazy because like it's blown up, but then there are all of these artifacts around. So it's kind of like what actually happened there? Was it a part of that or was it just something else? But I will introduce this series, Forbidden Symbols, Dark Practices, and the Pursuit of Hidden Knowledge. Across history, whispers of the occult have lingered in the shadows. Is it all superstition or the key to unlocking powers beyond our understanding? Join us as we peer behind the veil in the strange and secret world of the occult. And we'll definitely be getting into that today. And I will go ahead and do my little teaser as well. Since this is a double fisting episode.
So
Ouch.
sad.
Ouch. The Salem Witch Trials began in 1692 in the small Puritan settlement of Salem Village, now Danvers, Massachusetts, when a group of young girls began exhibiting strange and alarming behaviors, fits and screams and convulsions, which the community interpreted as signs of witchcraft.
Alcohol, syphilis, murder, forbidden.
This will be fun. It's sort of like a contemporary sort of science-driven story up front, and then this sort of the roots of occultism, and I love that.
Exactly. I mean, that happened so long ago. I mean, 1692 is so long. I think, didn't Columbus come over here in 1492 or something like that? So that was like 200 years after this country was actually founded, or the land was founded and then taken from the natives, which I won't get too much into. But it's one of those things where it's just like it's so long ago that you kind of wonder like, wow, how does this happen? We'll get into that. Have you ever visited up there before, Salem, Massachusetts, or where the witch trials were? I haven't.
No.
And I think it would be an interesting place to go see, you know.
In the off season.
Yeah.
I've heard it's insane this time of year.
Oh, God. I definitely wouldn't go this time of year, for sure.
No.
Yeah.
I don't like crowds.
No.
Well, before we dive in, just a quick note for listeners and viewers. This is our second time recording this part of the episode.
It
Because
is.
something with our recording platform, it muffed everything up. So
It did. And we lost an entire episode. So we are doing this for you today. We're staying over and we are re-recording this story. And Blake, I just want to like point out how handsome you look I guess it's afternoon here for me, not evening, in your robe that is just amazing.
yeah, I had this thing custom made for Halloween in New York maybe like 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I did this sort of like 1920s silent film era character. It was an original creation. But yeah, I bought this fabric at Mood
I love
in New
it.
York City. Yeah, so fun. And I had someone basically tailor it into a cloak. So it's an interiors fabric. It was made for like draperies or something.
Was the person who made it for you like a fashion student or something, or just a friend?
She just does full-time wedding gowns.
Oh,
But back then she was just doing tailoring. So she would travel to you and like tailor your outfit.
right.
So yeah, it was fun. We're both wearing black cloaks and not much else.
Yeah, that's right. 'Tis the season.
Tis indeed. Well, shall I give you my sources?
Yes, go ahead.
So I just have a trio of sources this evening. Sciencehistory.org, supercluster.com, and an article from caltech.edu. A little bit about John Whiteside, or Jack Parsons. He was at once a brilliant pioneer of American rocketry and a devoted practitioner of occult ritual. At the California Institute of Technology, Caltech,
Smarty pants.
Smarty, and in the Mojave Desert outside of Los Angeles, Parsons helped establish what would become the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and played a key role in the invention of castable solid fuel rockets, technology that would make way for U.S. missile and space flight programs. Yet alongside his technical achievements, Parsons embraced the teachings of English occultist Aleister Crowley. He became the leader of the California branch of the Thelemite order, Ordo Templi Orientis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, and I don't care.
They always come up with like the craziest names of these Latin, like old Latin, like type names for these things, and I never can pronounce them properly. So I think you did perfectly.
Thanks. I wish they would have just named it after a tree or something, like the Willow Temple.
Exactly.
But I digress. He engaged in avant-garde rituals and sex cult activity that scandalized his peers and triggered investigations by the U.S. government. During his life, Parsons bridged two worlds that most believed mutually exclusive: the emergent military-industrial complex of rocket science and a radically individualist, esoteric creed of magic and liberation. Thelema, so a little background. Thelema is a Western esoteric spiritual philosophy that's central theme is the concept of discovering and pursuing one's true will. It includes magic, rituals, and even spirit invocation. And their motto is essentially like do unto thyself instead of do unto others. So treat yourself right, and I love that.
Yeah. Yes.
I think we're going to join this one, Amanda.
It sounds like it could get a little saucy, because if you do unto yourself like what you only want to do, rather than thinking of religious norms and stuff like that, it probably makes for a pretty interesting life.
It's going to get really sexy. Jack Parsons was born in LA in 1914 and grew up in Pasadena, where his fascination with chemistry and explosives began at an early age. According to Caltech archives, he conducted homemade rocket experiments as a teenager in his backyard, often endangering himself and his neighbors. And this is a theme that we will see throughout this story, so stick around.
Kids.
His fascination with the occult also started early. He would often end his day by saying prayers to Satan, and at the age of 12, he attempted to summon a demon in his bedroom. He claimed to have been successful and was so terrified that he swore off necromancy, but that won't last long. Parsons never completed a college degree, but his deep understanding of chemical reactions and propulsion principles quickly drew attention from engineers at Caltech. By the late 1930s, Parsons had joined forces with a small, audacious trio of young scientists and engineers at Caltech's Guggenheim Aeronautical Laboratory. Among them, Frank Molina and Edward Foreman. Together, the trio began conducting experimental rocket tests in the Mojave Desert, eventually earning them the nickname the Suicide Squad for their hazardous, unpredictable experiments.
How do they not like blow their hand off or something like that? Like, I think about just dipshit. Well, probably because they weren't dipshits. They're very smart people. And maybe, but I'm thinking of like the level of safety standards back then, which were probably nil. And then like how many just like idiots every year, like on the 4th of July, like hold bottle rockets or something and blow off a finger or something like that. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Maybe that's what you're getting to, but doesn't sound like
Yeah.
a good ending. But I'm kind of like, how did he last that long even?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's sort of the thing of like, you can be a rocket scientist, but not have a lot of common sense or like street smarts,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
I know people like that actually.
They, as you'll recall from the last time we recorded this, Amanda, they spent basically a quarter of their grant money replacing and repairing stuff on Caltech campus because they just kept blowing shit up.
Yeah.
They even at one point almost decapitated someone because they
That's
weren't following
wild.
safety protocol.
Yeah. That's more than an oops.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to.
I didn't mean to blow your head off.
And taking that one step further, like behind closed doors, they would often talk about space travel. But back then in the 30s, you couldn't do that because space travel didn't exist. And so it was seen as science fiction.
Yeah.
And so like people would scoff at them. So they had to like talk about these fascinations and dreams behind closed doors.
Yeah, because I guess people back then were people were barely like airline travel was like a huge privilege back then, and it was still fairly new. So to think about space and, that sort of thing, people probably thought you were nuts because that's to the time, like, if you look at like old films and you think about space, like it's like every UFO looks like exactly the same, that's kind of what they thought about. Space was more of like a joke situation back then, I feel like.
Exactly. It was still science fiction at that point.
Yeah.
So regardless, their work was groundbreaking. In 1936, Parsons and his colleagues launched some of the first liquid fuel rockets tested in the US. Through persistence and technical ingenuity, they developed more stable and efficient propellants, leading to the first jet-assisted takeoff, or JATO.
Not to be confused with J-Lo.
Exactly. They're slightly different.
Okay.
Both volatile, though.
Very.
By the age of 23, 23, again, insane, Jack Parsons had already become a familiar name in Los Angeles newspapers. In 1938, a city police captain stood trial for attempted murder after planting a pipe bomb in the car of a private detective who had been investigating police corruption. The device exploded but failed to kill its target, setting off a sensational court case that drew citywide attention. Parsons, then a rising expert in explosives, was called as the prosecution's star witness. He reconstructed the bomb, demonstrated its design, and even detonated a replica which destroyed a Chrysler. His role in the case made him a minor local celebrity, cementing his reputation in Los Angeles as a go-to authority on explosives.
That's wild. Can you imagine if you were like the go-to for explosives? And in blowing up that car, I'm hoping that was like a controlled demolition sort of situation.
Yeah, I would imagine there was. I imagine there was some safety protocol around that experiment.
Yeah.
So in 1942, Parsons co-founded the Aerojet Engineering Corporation, which began producing JATO units on a commercial scale. The following year, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory was formally established under Caltech's management to continue rocket research for the military. Although Parsons lacked formal scientific credentials, his intuitive grasp of chemical propulsion was critical to the lab's early success. Colleagues described him as charismatic, daring, and unpredictable, a man who could inspire loyalty and unease in equal measure. And again, I'll share some photos in the YouTube. He's so handsome. He's got like the Clark Gable.
People who are handsome.
Yeah, I know. It was like incredibly smart. He's wealthy. He's handsome, and he's open to
whatever, it seems.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in just a minute.
Yeah.
By the mid-1940s, Parsons was regarded as one of America's most visionary figures in experimental rocketry. Yet, even as his technical career accelerated, his personal life began to shift toward a very different form of experimentation, one that would soon eclipse his scientific achievements. Even as Jack Parsons was helping to pioneer modern rocketry, his life was increasingly drawn toward the world of the occult. While leading rocket tests by day, he spent his nights studying the writings of Aleister Crowley. Crowley saw sex as a sacrament. During ceremonies, worshippers ate what they called cakes of light, which are essentially Eucharists made of flour, honey, oil, ash, and bodily fluids like semen and menstrual blood.
Oh God, that's absolutely disgusting. I mean, that's an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's taking it to another level.
Yeah. Oh, and just it seems so unsanitary.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a joke in there about sanitary napkins. I don't know. Through friends in LA's bohemian circles, Parsons became involved with the Agape Lodge, the California branch of Crowley's Ordo Templi Orientis, which blended ritual magic, sexual liberation, and mysticism. By 1942, he had risen to the head of the lodge, hosting ceremonies and study sessions. In the early 1940s, Jack Parsons and his wife, Helen, moved into a sprawling Pasadena mansion with a group of fellow Thelemites. Each member paid $100 in rent, effectively transforming the property into a communal experiment in mysticism and free living. The house is
a swingers club.
Yes, exactly.
Swingers home.
Pretty much what's happening here.
Yeah.
So the house itself sounds lovely. It's a 3-story American craftsman mansion on Millionaires Row, the same stately street where Parsons had grown up. Once a residence for Caltech benefactors, and even a temporary retreat for Albert Einstein during his visits, the home now hosted late-night rituals, jazz-soaked parties, or jizz-soaked parties.
I was about to say, more like jizz-soaked, yes.
Probably both. Parsons seemed thrilled by the irony. He filled his and Helen's rooms with artifacts that reflected his dual fascinations. A statue of the Greek god Pan, symbol of lust and freedom, and a collection of swords and daggers that pointed to both science and ceremony. The neighbors were less amused. Millionaires Row was still home to Pasadena's elite, including brewery heiress Lily Bush, and the noise from the commune's parties drew frequent complaints. When police came knocking, Parsons met them at the door, polite and poised, mentioning his position at Caltech. The respectable young scientist was always able to send them on their way.
Again, attractive.
Exactly.
Listen to attractive people. I mean, that's why Ted Bundy didn't get caught for so long. He was handsome.
Right. So by 1941, the household's harmony fractured. That summer, while Helen was away, the 26-year-old Parsons began an affair with her 17-year-old half-sister, Betty.
That's another level there.
Yes.
When you first told this story, I thought you meant his own half-sister, and I was like, hold up, wait a minute. Like, that was massively fucked up. But it was her half-sister, which is it's not equally as fucked up. It's just it's mean.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sakes, she was only 27 and he's leaving her for 17-year-old half-sister. Okay. Yeah.
Could you find anyone else?
Yeah. LA's a big area. A lot of attractive people there too that he could have honed in on.
Yeah. So, and the deal too is the relationship was no secret. Members of the commune viewed sexual freedom as part of their spiritual philosophy.
Right.
So when Helen comes back, Parsons basically confesses without remorse and told her plainly that he found Betty more, she's sexier. He's like, I find Betty more attractive and I intend to stay with her. So hurt but undeterred, Helen soon began her own affair with Wilfred Smith, who is the commune's leader and a close friend of Parsons. So it's just swinging saloon doors there.
No doubt. It's just I'll just move on with the next guy.
Exactly. Sounds fun. By the mid-1940s, Jack Parsons' life had become an unpredictable fusion of scientific ambition and occult experimentation. After years of success at Caltech and Aerojet, he grew increasingly estranged from both institutions. His volatile reputation, unconventional lifestyle, and mounting scrutiny from government investigators lead to the revocation of his security clearance, effectively ending his formal role in America's growing rocket program.
I wonder what the government was like checking in on him about. You know what I mean? Did it get into that at all? I don't recall from, like, was it something specific that he knew? I wonder. I mean, I feel like rocket and space programs, particularly back then, were really probably kept under wraps because it was, I mean, basically what his work did was probably helped fuel like missiles and stuff like that, which are used for war and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure like a lot of that stuff is like highly classified now even, but way more so back then because it was new. Now it's just improved upon,
Yeah, I do think, and there's so much information out there that I'm not even getting into. I mean, there's books about him, so, listener, do your own research.
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of it is because he was so unpredictable that they were keeping a close watch on him.
Yeah. And it probably didn't help that he had that occult side that he seemed to not hide. You know what I mean? He wasn't really hiding his belief systems and stuff like that.
No, not at all.
And way of living, lifestyle.
Yeah. So basically, at this point, freed from institutional constraints, Parsons devoted himself to Thelema and a series of rituals he called the Babylon working. Drawing inspiration from Aleister Crowley's writings, Parsons sought to summon a spiritual entity he believed would manifest as a new feminine divine force, Babylon, the Scarlet Woman of Thelemic mythology, destined to bring about a new age of liberated consciousness. During this period, he was joined by a young science fiction writer named L. Ron Hubbard.
You don't say.
Yes.
So, okay, wait a minute. I totally have forgotten about this angle of this already, but the future founder and leader of Scientology was involved with this guy and his teachings and that sort of thing.
And occult practice.
Yeah. And occult practices. And then he went on to start a religion that is definitely suppresses people. And, I mean, it's just such a interesting angle on the story, because
religion
of doing. Yeah.
Religion, which some might argue cult.
Right.
So the pair conducted elaborate magical ceremonies in early 1946, blending Crowleyan ritual with Parsons' personal belief in combining sexual energy and creative will to invoke cosmic change. So Crowley himself even expressed alarm at Parsons' growing fanaticism, referring to him as a victim of his own imagination. In the aftermath of the Babylon working, Parsons' finances and professional stability deteriorated. Hubbard fled with both Parsons' money and his romantic partner, and Parsons' once promising scientific career was eclipsed by sensational rumors of his occult pursuits. So at this stage, he basically turns to freelance consulting in explosives and special effects, but he really can't find steady employment again.
Right.
And on June 17th, 1952, a powerful explosion tore through Parsons' home laboratory in Pasadena, killing him instantly at age 37. The blast was ruled an accident involving volatile chemicals, though speculation about sabotage or ritual misfire has persisted ever since. And there's essentially 4 theories here as to the actual cause of death. One, again, is accidental explosion, which is sort of obvious, he's not following safety protocol historically. So that's sort of the obvious. The second theory is suicide. Because his career had basically collapsed, he lost a lot of financing, and his relationship had ended. There are some people that believe that he killed himself, although I would argue,
if you're
going to kill yourself, why would you blow yourself up? Why would you choose that method?
And and this happened at his house.
Yes.
So none of the people at his house were killed too. It was just him.
Right.
Yeah.
And then,
Although I don't know if, like, by this time, if people still even lived in the house with him because of his situation. And
yeah. And again, there's a lot of information out there that I skimmed over just for the sake of
yeah,
keeping this
that would be
tight. But
interesting to see if he was still living that, like, communal lifestyle. It's interesting that, like, if it were like, I don't think it were a suicide or a blow up because, or like an accident. Well, like, it may have been an accident. I'll see what your other two options are before I give my opinion. Go on.
yeah, so the third is murder or sabotage. So this sort of darker theory stems from the like the government watching him and his knowledge of classified rocket technology that made him a potential liability. So some people argue that because he was under surveillance, this was essentially set up to get rid of him.
That's kind of where I was going with it, because I was like, how convenient that he was the only one who got killed if multiple people actually lived at that home. Now, he very well could have had an accident, like working in there, and when no one else was home, like during the day, maybe they had their own jobs. But I feel like in a communal environment like that, like, a lot of people, like, there's always at least one other person around, so it's interesting that he was the only one who got killed in this explosion. So I wonder if it was targeted and he was being watched.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one that I sort of believe in the most, probably. And then the fourth, and I'll just skim through this one quickly because I don't think it holds much water. But there's this fringe theory that it was a ritual misfire, and that he was conducting ritual experiment involving volatile compounds and like some sort of symbolic fire or something. So like merging magic and science.
Right.
But I don't think that holds much water.
I think it was an inside job.
I do too. So to wrap up part one of this, despite his controversial life and untimely death, Parsons' influence endured. His work at Caltech and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory laid the foundations of American rocketry, while his blending of science and mysticism created one of the most paradoxical legacies in modern history, a visionary who helped propel humanity towards the stars while trying to summon the gods from the void. So again, I just love the juxtaposition of science and magic and sort of like fact and science fiction.
Yeah.
I just thought it was he's a fun character who I'd never heard of before.
I've never heard of him. Like, and I still find it interesting, the whole L. Ron Hubbard angle in there.
Yeah.
And just amazing how his work influences things even today that I'm sure are being developed and stuff like that. And I had never even heard of this person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Like, this is like, it's almost like a little history lesson that's like, I feel like I should know about this guy, that
Right.
I've learned about him somewhere along the way. But he's not going to make it into traditional history books because of his lifestyle and stuff like that. I'm sure they're not going to teach that at our local public schools or whatever.
Right. And even if there are like science books that mention him, they're not mentioning the other side of his life.
Exactly. Because
sex magic.
Okay. Blood, sugar, sex magic, as I said before.
Yes.
All right.
Cool.
Well, I guess it's time for me to get into mine.
Yes. And here we are. Part
We
two.
are back. Part two. Yes. Part two, the Salem Witch Trials. So my sources today are Wikipedia, the SalemWitchMuseum.com, EncyclopediaBritannica.com, and History.com. So the Salem Witch Trials began in 1692. That's a long time ago. In the small settlement of Salem Village, now Danvers, Massachusetts. So it was 1692 to 1693, and that was considered to be colonial Massachusetts and one of the infamous episodes of mass hysteria in American history. Over 200 people were accused of witchcraft and 20 were executed. And there were even a few people who actually died while in custody of like disease and that sort of thing, because, they had stuff like smallpox and stuff going on back then. So 200 people were accused, 20 were executed, most of them by hanging. But a couple of people were actually pressed to death.
Yeah.
That sounds awful, quite frankly. And I don't know. I don't know, like if you knew this, but while it's not the largest witch trials in history, but their impact has endured because of what they reveal about fear, justice, and society in general. Religiously, the trials reflected the Puritan worldview, which emphasized strict moral codes and a constant fear of the devil.
This sounds frighteningly familiar.
Yes, the accusations exposed how religious extremism could fuel persecution and violence. Legally, the trials revealed the dangers of accepting unreliable evidence. Testimony based on spectral evidence, where accusers claimed to see the spirit of the accused committing harm, played a central role. After Salem, courts in Massachusetts and beyond largely rejected such intangible evidence, contributing to the development of more rigorous standards for proof in American law. So how did this start even to begin with, the Salem Witch Trials? So in January of 1692, Betty Paris, who was age 9, and Abigail Williams, age 11, the daughter and niece of Salem's minister, Reverend Samuel Paris, began having violent fits. They screamed, threw things, and claimed to be pinched or pricked by invisible forces. Soon, other girls, including Ann Putnam Jr., Mercy Lewis, and Mary Walcott, began showing the same afflictions. Because doctors couldn't find a physical cause, a doctor named Dr. William Griggs declared the girls were under an evil hand. Maybe they were just being shitty little kids.
Yeah, little kids.
Yeah, kids can make up I can't believe all of this was started by people who were 9 or 11 years old. Kids make up shit. They have really wild imaginations. And they say that kids see things like spirits, kids are more susceptible to seeing things like spirits and stuff like that. So maybe there was something going on with them, but they started blaming people in the community for this because the doctor said that they were afflicted. So under pressure to name who were tormenting them, the girls accused 3 women in February of 1692. The first woman was Tituba. She was Reverend Paris's enslaved woman from the Caribbean. So basically, they had a slave working for them. Well, slaving for them because she wasn't being paid. So they blamed Tituba first, and then named Sarah Good, who was a poor beggar in the community, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly sick woman. These women were easy targets, outsiders in the strict Puritan community, and during interrogation, not unlike the West Memphis Three, Tituba confessed, claiming she had seen the devil and other witches in Salem. Her confession confirmed the community's fears that witchcraft was real and widespread. So, of course, this caused panic and mass hysteria. After the first arrest, accusations spread rapidly, more and more people. And then the first 3 were all women who were accused of this. But then they started naming men and women, even respected church members, of accusing them of practicing witchcraft. The hysteria grew as courts began accepting that spectral evidence. testimony that the accused spirits or ghosts had appeared in visions. And within months, hundreds were accused, dozens imprisoned, and 19 executed by hanging. So I think it was just the one person that was killed by pressing. But that's one too many.
Yeah. Are you going to get into pressing? Like what that is?
No, I
Okay.
honestly, do you want to interject real quickly?
Well, and this is from memory, but I think, and I might be wrong here, so leave a comment below. But I think that's where they essentially like one by one placed stones on the person
Mm-hmm.
until it crushed them. So
Oh
it's
my
like a
God.
slow process of
Oh, that sounds
crushing.
horrible.
Yeah.
Have you ever been, well, no, because you haven't been to St. Augustine, right?
I have.
Oh, you have. Did you go to the Museum of Torture there?
No, I remember the photos from when you went.
Yeah, yeah. That place was, this story made me think of that,
Yeah.
because of everything. But so the causes of this, historians believe several deeper factors fueled this crazy panic. One, obviously, religious fear. The Puritans believed the devil was active in daily life. Sure. Social tension. Salem Village was divided by family rivalries and property disputes. So, when you have these disputes in the family, like they start blaming others, and accusing them of things. So, gender and power dynamics. Most accusers were young girls, and most of the accused were women who defied social norms. So, for instance, the one who was known as the beggar. I would say more than likely sex workers, that sort of thing, people who were kind of cast away by normal puritanical society were the ones that were being blamed for this, and mostly women. And frontier stress. Recent wars with native tribes, smallpox outbreaks, and political instability created a climate of fear. This almost makes my stomach crawl because I feel like we're going through a lot of this in like not the same way per se, but anyway, I
Yeah.
just
The
yeah.
same spirit is there.
Yeah, the same spirit is there. The aftermath. By 1693, so this lasted about a year, the panic subsided as respected leaders, including Cotton Mather, began questioning the trials. The governor eventually halted executions and dissolved the special court. In later years, Salem's community and the Massachusetts government admitted the trials were a tragic mistake. I think I would call it more than a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would call it an atrocity. So basically, in short, the Salem Witch Trials started when fear, religion, and social tension collided after a few young girls claimed to be bewitched. Their accusations unleashed a wave of hysteria that cost 20 innocent lives and left a lasting scar on American history. And as I said, when I started, I mean, that's pretty much all that I have on this one. But, 20 people is enough. But this actually is not the largest. There were larger witch trials in history, and most of them were before the Salem witch trials. Number one on a list is the Wurzburg and Bamberg witch trials that happened in Germany between 1626 and 1631. So then modern day Germany was known as the Holy Roman Empire. I didn't realize that went into the 1600s. For me,
Yeah.
when I think of Roman Empire, I think even earlier to that.
Mm-hmm.
Victims, an estimated 900 to 1,200 people were executed. It was driven by religious wars, the 30 Years' War, famine, and fear of the devil. And in Wurzburg, at least 600 people were executed, including children as young as 9. And in Bamberg, about 300 to 600 were killed. And these are considered some of the largest and most brutal witch persecutions ever recorded in history. Another in Germany during 1581 to 1593. So this is actually like going on for a long time. The Salem witch trials was just like for a year. which probably increases, the numbers. But the Trier witch trials in Germany had 368 people who were executed. And it was one of the first large-scale witch purges in Europe. Many victims were educated or high-status individuals, including priests and nobles, which is interesting because it's kind of the opposite of the other witch trials.
Right.
Another in the 1500s were the North Berwick witch trials in Scotland from 1590 to 1592. About 70 people were accused and several executed. These trials heavily influenced King James VI of Scotland, later James I of England, who wrote Diamology, spreading witch hunting practice across Great Britain. And then the other one is the Torsaka witch trials in Sweden in 1675. There were 71 people beheaded and burned in a single day. It's the largest mass execution for witchcraft in Swedish history. Can you imagine 71 people beheaded and burned in one day?
That's crazy. That's
insane. That's nuts. So that's a short and sweet look back on the Salem witch trials, and then some other witch trials.
Terrible.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
All that witchy hair going up in flames.
Gosh. I mean, I just know that if I were alive back in that day, I probably would have been accused of being a witch.
You definitely would have been.
Yeah, because I'm not religious, like I'm not high society. I'm on the fringe,
You're essentially a sex worker.
So basically I would have been totally fucked during the witch trial days. But it's I just, the mass hysteria around it, like for a population of that size, because villages and communities and stuff, it wasn't like today,
Right.
like, so that amount of people, being accused of something in a village is, like a large percentage of the population, and pretty shocking that something like that could even happen back in the day, which people were highly, for the most part, uneducated back then. If you had a formal education of any kind in the 15 and 1600s, you were probably a part of like nobility or something like that, because education was not like widely spread in those days. So just like today, in today's world, I feel like the uneducated believe everything that they hear. And their, mass hysteria can happen because of that. And it's kind of scary to think about that we have kind of a little bit of weaving of this in our society today, with regards to being like not being white in the US right now, like the ICE raids and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's crazy to me.
It is crazy and terrifying.
Yeah.
All at once.
Well, Blake, where can people continue to listen to these wonderful stories of ours?
Well, you can continue to do such things right where you are right now, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. And you can rate, review, and leave a comment. Please do those things. Let us know that you're enjoying it. Hit subscribe. And send in your stories or send feedback to hello@theforbiddenpod.com. Or send, as we always request, send nudes.
Yes. Still waiting on those.
We're still waiting.
Get crazy this Halloween. Send us nudes and your craziest sexy Halloween costume.
Yes, partially exposed.
Yes, because you're going to be going out on Halloween looking like a slut.
What, me or the listener? Maybe both. Yeah. And then follow along on social media @The Forbidden Pod. on TikTok. Nope, we're off TikTok. On Facebook and Instagram. Right?
Yes. And finally, you can see our archives on www.theforbiddenpod.com. Blake, thank you so much for that educational piece that you gave today. I had actually never heard of that gentleman before.
I hadn't either. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
thank you for your reprisal on witchcraft. It's been a while since I've heard those stories.
yeah, me too. I had it in my head that like the people who did it or the accusers were more like teenagers or something like that. I didn't realize that they were believing like a 9 and 11-year-old
Yeah.
who started it. I thought, oh, it's some teenagers who were, looking down on poor people or those, who were on the fringe of the community and decided to do something mean, whereas I don't know that a 9 or 11-year-old has the mental capacity to think on that level of, oh, we'll do it to be mean to them. I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know kids well enough, but I know kids are assholes. I mean, that I do know, but I just don't know what age it starts.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
9 or 11, I guess.
Yeah, especially in the days of Salem War.
In the days of yore.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for your story again. Have a happy Halloween this week.
Yeah.
I know it's your favorite holiday of the year.
Tricks and treats for all.
Yes. And listeners, as always, we thank you.
So spooky.
Spooky.